Hey guys, welcome to the YouTube channel. This is part 8 of my 4AG rebuild. Part 1 through 7 is basically showing you how to build the 4AG from the bare block all the way up to the long block. So basically everything that's including in the rotating assembly. Part 8 and onwards is basically kind of adding on the accessories that you might do on your 4AG. On my 4AG build, I'm going to put in ITBs. So I'm going to show y'all how to do that in part 8 here. So let me just show y'all a quick update here. So this is pretty much from 1 through 7 part. I didn't show that I know how to install the timing cover, but it's pretty easy. You just have the timing covers and you have these bolts. You align it to the back of the timing cover, the back part of it at least, and then you put this I forget what you call this pulley, but the crank pulley basically. I know there's a specific term for it, but it kind of escapes my mind right now. But you put the crank pulley in. I just did the same technique with the crank gear where I cleaned it out first and then I put grease on here in the inside and just aligned the notch on the pulley to the actual crank shaft, the same way I did with the timing gear, and just hammered it in, and it went in pretty smoothly there. And then I just mocked up this lightweight pulley and also just mocked up the Flow's alternator bracket. But I'll do another video on this one separately on both of these. It's not too hard, but I just mocked it up just to make sure everything kind of fits nicely. Same thing, I also just mocked up the Flow's water neck, but I will kind of show how I assemble all that with the whole cooling system, electrical stuff, whenever I get to that point there. But for part 8, I'm just going to show y'all how to install ITBs on the 4AG motor. So you can do all kinds of setups for ITBs. The one I'm doing is a kind of a simple EFI ITB setup. So I'm using the Technotoy Tuning small port 20 valve adapter plate. So this is the manifold that allows you to run silver top 20 valve ITBs. Now you can get different adapters for other things like carbs or black top 20 valves or whatever you want to do for ITB setup, but it's the same concept. You need some type of adapter to run ITBs to your motor there. So this is my adapter right here. It comes with these fittings here for the vacuums, which you'll need the hoses for the vacuum lines to set this up to a vacuum block. And then you also need the 20 valve ITBs, which is right here. And these are the 20 valve silver top 4AGE ITBs. I got this from a friend of mine in Oklahoma, Dennis. He helped me out here. So this is my extra set of ITBs, which I will show y'all how to put in here. A little things to note is that I am replacing the screws that were actually on the ITBs to mount to here. These are the factory screws, but unfortunately, from experience, these screws, they tend to easily strip, and once they're seized on, they're on there pretty tight. It's really hard to remove it. So to just make it real easy, I went to the hardware store, got replacements, and they're like hex bolts. And these are, I believe, M6x1. That's the thread pattern on it. And let me just double check. I think I have it here too. Here is it M6x1? Yeah. So it's M6x1. The by 25 and 12 and 40 are all the lengths there. But yeah, you guys can pause it if you need to, whatever. But that's the stuff that I got there. But the thread pattern is M6x1, and I got 8 total of the shorter bolts here, and then 4 total of the longer bolts. And then you also need 20 valve gaskets. Ideally, you want to use gaskets to avoid vacuum leaks. These are factory Toyota OEM. I opened these up just to make it easy for me to use on the video. But you want OEM. These are used gaskets. I'm gonna keep this just for reference and maybe as backup. They're still pretty good, but I already paid money for a new one, so might as well do that. And what I've learned from experience is that you want to install the throttle bodies first to the adapter, then adapter to here. It makes it a lot easier to do it that way. So I'll show y'all how I do that. First, number one thing is you always want to clean it here. So let me just adjust the camera here so y'all can see, and then get things going here really. And one thing to note is, I guess you guys can see this here. You guys see it? Let me double check here. No, not really. Okay, there you go. Okay, now it's a lot better, I think. Yeah, okay, there we go. Okay. So one thing to note is that you want to make sure the orientation for the ITBs are correct. Thankfully, when I bought this from Dennis, it came with the 20 valve silver top manifold for them too. So the manifold was down here for the 20 valve silver top 4AG motor. And so I knew the orientations were all correct. So I just I removed them how they were like this, and then just kind of lined it up. And then I kind of also set my ITB adapter here to where it'll just line up like this, and I don't forget which is which. So you want to make an important note of that too. It'll make it a lot easier when you have to sync up the throttle bodies when you start getting it tuned. So number one thing to do is to always clean the mating surface to the ITBs here. So I'm going to do that right now. Got my heel here. So y'all can definitely see here. Yep, you definitely can. Okay, sweet. Alright, so I'll move this on this side here just a tiny bit there here so you can kind of see better. Okay, so again, this is kind of like raw, unedited. Might take an hour to do, but you know, I do it just because I don't want to work too hard, honestly, editing videos, and it's more mainly, honestly, for myself, if anything, so I can like look back and make sure I did them right or whatever. So yeah, so I'm just using brake cleaner to clean the matting surface here. And I'm gonna do the same on the backs of these throttle bodies here too here. I'm just gonna flip these upside down here, make it a lot easier. And also another thing I want to note before when I install this, you can see like there's this little kind of space here. That space kind of goes in where this little flat part goes in like that. So that's how the throttle bodies open up simultaneously, basically. Very mechanical. Good old throttle body cable and mechanical linkage. So for instant throttle response. The reason why I'm going ITBs is just I like the sound of it, and I like the response, the throttle response of the motor, and most importantly, reliability. These motors are factory NA. If you boost them up, put boost, you might decrease the reliability of it. You'll have increased heat, and at the racetrack, last thing you want is increased heat. So because heat also kills cars. And I've also noticed that, you know, sometimes people put RTV on here instead of using the actual 20 valve gaskets. And in my opinion, that's not the best way to seal a gasket, especially on throttle bodies, just because you can have a chance of leaking, vacuum leak, and also with silicone, I noticed that there's some holes here too on the ends here, and I don't think you want silicone in these areas here. It might mess up the way the vacuum is also when you try tuning up the car. So yeah, that's one thing you want to make a note of. Also, you ideally want to get the OEM gaskets or the proper gaskets at least for whatever throttle body you need. Honestly, RTV won't cut it in my opinion. So yeah, I'm just cleaning this good enough here, nothing too crazy. Like I said, this is like more of a mild, just kind of motor where it's not gonna make a whole lot of power, just mostly stock power, but I can beat on the track for hours on end. And to win races, you want a reliable motor, not, you know, all out blown out motor that might blow up on you. Next thing you know, you're spending the money that you spent to go racing in the garage or paddock trying to diagnose what went wrong. So yeah, I'm just gonna double check here too that these all fit here. Yeah, so these thread nicely here. So yeah, just wanna make sure, because on the hardware store you just never know. All right, sweet. All right, so I'm gonna align these one by one here. We'll get this going here. So these are the factory plates here. Just gonna line them up like so. And I'm gonna just do it one by one like so here. See how that goes. I'm gonna just, again, just kind of thread them in loosely so I can make adjustments if need be. You can definitely use the Phillips head bolts, but just, you know, from experience on working on these old Toyotas, using those screw type bolts, they tend to strip real easy when they're on there tight, and it's going to be a pain to remove if it does get stripped. You really don't want that. And the amount of money you paid to go ITBs is honestly the same as probably going boost. Like this manifold adapter, the ITBs are pretty expensive, especially nowadays with these parts becoming more rare. They're getting more expensive to do, and boost is technically the more economical choice if you want to make power for the money. So something to think about if y'all are thinking about, oh, what can make me get power out the 4AG motor? Well, the answer is going to be boost, not really ITBs for the value. I mean, you definitely can build yourself a really nice high power NA 4AG motor, but the thing is that unfortunately I guess the amount of money to make that kind of like 200 horsepower is going to be a lot more expensive than you just doing a boosted 4AGE motor here. So something to think about. All right, so like I said, I'm gonna align this to here where the flat part meets the screws on the side like I showed y'all earlier. Like I'm gonna basically, let's see if you guys can see here, but basically what I'm gonna do is align this flat part to here, just like that, nice and smooth. And you wanna make sure that's a good connection there. So I'm gonna do that to this side here too. So I'm just gonna put these guys on here. I'll line it up. Okay. And that went in nicely, like it's meant to be. So, yeah, for the amount of money, if you want to make power for cheap, definitely go boost. But in my opinion, I don't want to do boost just because, you know, at the racetrack, things get very hot, and last thing you want is heat issues on the racetrack. So NA is technically just more reliable, in my opinion, than anything else. Go ahead and I'm gonna use this type of deal here too, here just to make sure. Let me see here. Let's see here. Okay, so this is better here. Okay. Yep. So it's also a 5 mil. So these are 5mm size hex bolts here. Okay, sweet. So I'm gonna go ahead and just, again, I'm just loosely doing this right now, just to make sure everything fits in nicely here. Okay. And then I'm gonna remove the bolts one by one. I'm gonna put Loctite on it too afterwards. So just FYI. And again, you always want to orient the ITBs properly, which is throttle body 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes when you buy these 20 valve ITBs, they might not come with the manifold from the 20 valve silver top ITBs, but just kind of make an estimate like which one I guess fits right or aligns right, you can say. So yeah, I'm hoping y'all can see that too here. Yeah, my battery is going to be dying, but if it dies, you know, we'll just just make another one, you know, like just connect the two videos together, really. That's it. I'm going to do this nicely and loosely here, just making sure everything fits up nicely, threads in nicely, and then I'll really cinch them down once I get this on here, right here to here. So yeah, okay, so these are all looking nice, and then just align this one to this guy here perfectly, and there we go. That's it there. And then like that, like so. You can always reuse the bolts if you want to, but you know, like I said, from my experience, those Phillips screws that comes from Toyota, especially on these old cars, they tend to strip real easy, and I actually had to soak the screws in PB Blaster last night in order for me to remove those screws from the stock 20 valve manifolds, and I just took my time removing each and one of them just because of how stuck they were. I didn't want to risk that. So I put the manifolds in the I put the gaskets in, and I basically put them onto the ITB adapter. And now what I'm gonna do is tighten them up, but just to make sure that they don't come loose, I'm gonna put Loctite. I'm using red Loctite. Yeah, it might be overkill, but just from experience at the track, how many times my bolts have gotten loose, I'm just not gonna take that risk on this spare motor. And this is what I'm using right here. So permanent Loctite thread locker. So once it's in, and that'll be it. But I know I can remove the red Loctite. I am gonna put a small dab of it. Not gonna go crazy on it and put a big amount, because I still want to be able to remove it. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and just do that here real quickly. Just gonna cut this right so here, very nicely here, very nice thin cut here. Let me go ahead and just do that here. Okay, here, sweet. Okay, so popped it open. I'm gonna now take my time and do this here so y'all can see better. Here we go. There we go. Alright, so I'm gonna do one by one, cinch them all up here. At least I'm able to align them right and everything, so everything lines up perfectly on the test fit. So perfect there. So I'm gonna go ahead and just sit down to here, and y'all can see how I do it here. Okay, so I guess you can just see like that there. I'm just going to put red Loctite on the back bolt here first. Just a tiny bit amount of it, and then tighten it up, and then just a tiny bit, just a dab, just like that, really. Nothing crazy. I still want to be able to remove this bolt, so yeah. But Loctite always helps. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do like that here, just kind of twist it in. Okay. Alright, so that's in there. Hand tight. I'm just doing hand tight with Loctite. Like I said, it's just because I want to be able to remove it still, but Loctite's going to keep it in there to avoid vibrating off and causing issues. Street driving, I think you're okay, but definitely if you're track driving, stuff like this, I think you would want to Loctite them just from experience. Because everything is all revving high RPM constantly. The heat, you know, when you hit those rumble strips or the curbs, they don't exactly are smooth on some of these curbs here. So, but you want to hit the curb sometimes because you get quicker times. So, yeah, it's just one of those things you want to, I guess, do. And it's always good to use OEM quality, or at least OEM equivalent, or better parts if you can. There's nothing wrong with eBay builds though, you know. I think I totally get that side too, where so I keep everything nice and cheap and easy. And yeah, so I'm just gonna cinch these up here too here. Okay, till it's nice and tight here on all the sides there here too. Okay. Alright, that's nice and tight. That's nice and tight here. And Techno Toy makes pretty good parts for the H6. I'm very thankful that they did this one here, the ITB adapters for 20 valve ITBs into 16 valves. That's good there. Okay, nice and tight. Again, just hand tight's good enough. You do not want to strip this here just because this is aluminum. And once you strip aluminum, that kind of sucks. Aluminum is a softer metal, so again, take it easy. And yeah, so I think it'd be a lot easier if y'all see that, how I do it here too here. So yeah, I'm just gonna install the ITBs here. Now, you don't have to go this route to go ITBs. I mean, there's some people that use blacktop 20 valve ITBs. The thing is that blacktop ITBs, their mounting positions are a little bit different than silver top. But if you get the correct manifold adapter for your motor, it should be fine. You can probably custom make a manifold adapter too for whatever ITBs you want to run. Some people run bike carbs on these on 4AG motors, and they have the manifold, which is this, the adapter for it to run bike carbs. People run, I guess, the Hayabusa bike carbs, and then you can also run, you know, the automotive like Weber or Mikuni's. Any kind of ITB carbureted setup, but you just always want the right ITB manifold adapter to it. And then just make sure you have the right vacuums for it. Like these T3 comes with these little taps here for the vacuum lines, and the stock 20 valve silver top actually has these little nipples here for vacuum. You want to close these all off because the vacuum will be coming from here now. So if you're doing this setup, make sure that you do close off the vacuum lines here. So yeah, again, I'm just doing this here just so you can see, and then we'll mount it onto the deal here. Okay, red Loctite. Don't go crazy on this. This can definitely make it permanent. That's why you hopefully what I've done in the past is like on my, this is technically my third motor. The second motor I got from a friend named Ricky from North Carolina, and he's the one that I bought his running 4AG, and I pretty much just plopped it onto my car, and I've just been racing with it since August, and it's been good so far. But what I did is that since his motor is a big port and my old motor that I blew up, my first one that I blew up, is a big port too, I just removed it. I removed the ITB, the whole setup, just from here. I never removed this part. So this is technically my spare 20 valve throttle bodies that I bought from Dennis a while back. And glad I did, because I can put these ITBs on this motor and onto the small port motor, which this is the third one, like I said, and not have to worry about, you know, using the ITBs that's on the big port. Because on the big port, the manifold adapter for the ITBs is actually a little bit different, because big ports have wider mouth on the intake side versus the small ports, which are smaller mouths on the intake side. So just something you want to think about when you do this. So yeah. Alright, so I'm just tying this up by hand here. Make sure that everything is all nice and tight and snug. Okay. Everything's seated good and properly here. Same thing on the back side here. You always want to make sure that that's seated properly here. Okay. Hand tight is always the best way, so you don't strip anything. Okay. Now I'm going to do this guy here next here on this side here. And then yeah, and it's always good to like test fit everything before you start cinching things down. It's just to make sure that everything fits properly the way they're supposed to, versus, you know, just going away at it. And that just comes from experience from working on cars, really. Before, when I did this, my first motor, I made tons of mistakes and learned from them. And thankfully, the motor was built, in my opinion, pretty good, because it didn't die on me or anything. It lasted me a season and a half of tracking it, and won me a race before it blew up. So yeah, and the motor that I built or rebuilt was a motor that is constantly on red line, constantly shifting at red line. And these, it's, you know, it's going pretty decently fast. This isn't like first and second gear type tracks. These are fourth gear, fifth gear tracks, third gear tracks, maybe a second gear corner. But a lot of the tracks I'm tracking at are pretty decently fast. You are carrying speed, and you want, you know, the motor to hold up. And I think my first motor that I built held up pretty well, and that's why I'm doing this video for y'all, for anyone that's watching this YouTube channel, for anyone that wants to think that they can build or want to build a motor. Hopefully this will enlighten y'all and give y'all inspiration to do it yourself too. So yeah, just you know, just doing what I love to do, really. And I do this on my spare time, and you always gotta make time to do this. If you know, if you all make excuses and stuff, or don't really make the time for it, it'll never get done. And that's just facts with anything, really. You can say you want this and that, but if you don't put the effort for it, it's never gonna happen. That's just the truth. So yeah, something y'all can also think about too is that, you know, you can't be just dilly-dallying and hope that's just gonna happen one day. Nope, you gotta make the moves for it. That's with anything in life. So just gotta prioritize what's important to you and make that time for it. So yeah. Alright, so just doing like this here. Alright, and you can tell that this manifold is used, and yeah, it was used. It was on my original small port that I rebuilt now in the video, and thankfully the small port was all good, like spec wise. I can rebuild it, it's rebuildable, so I'm rebuilding it. What it was, the story with the small port is that it was smoking like a freight train, like a chimney, and I was like, oh, I can't be using that at the track, they're gonna ding me. Look like I'm gonna be doing a smoke screen on everybody, you know. So yeah, I took that motor off, bought a big port 4AG motor from my other friend Harris, and he had a 4AG laying around at the time, and all 8.6 guys kind of stick together, and he gave it to me for decently good money, a good price really. And the compression test on that wasn't that good. It was I mean, it's like 110 type of deal, but the rest were like 140, 150s, and then I think cylinder 2 or 3 were the ones that were bad, or it was kind of lower than the others. And rather than take that risk of just slapping it on and then having it smoke again or giving me issues, I just decided just to rebuild and take it apart, the big port 4AG motor. And being first time, yeah, it's very nerve-wracking, it's very daunting, it's very scary, because it's kind of the unknown, you know. And but thankfully everything went in pretty well and went in smooth, and yeah, it gave me the confidence to also put this video out on how to rebuild 4AGs, just because, like, you know, I'll be on Facebook forums or in the forums sometimes, and I would see people wondering how to rebuild it or how would they do this and that. And I'm hoping that this video inspires y'all also to do it here. So yeah, all right, so it's almost done here, putting the 4AG the 20 valve ITBs in here. Almost done there here. And Dennis was nice enough to give me this throttle position sensor, so thankfully I didn't have to buy that. Sometimes when you buy these ITBs, they don't come with throttle body sensor or even the 20 valve manifold for it, so it just comes just like this, which is technically what you want when you're doing a ITB build, because you're going to be using your own manifold or ITB adapter here. You can, you know, make your own, like 3D print one, or if you know someone that can make these, props to you, or you can just buy one that's already kind of pre-made, like Techno Toy Tuning. And I am not sponsored by Techno Toy Tuning or anything like that. I just am just using their products, and it's pretty good for me. So yeah, thankfully there are some companies that still make parts for 4AGs, very few. You know, Techno Toy is one of them. You got Battle Garage, you got SQ Engineering in Australia, you got MRP and also in Australia, which they make 4AG race parts too and everything. So yeah, just one of those things that you want to do. Okay, all right, so nice and tight, all hand tight basically. I'm just feeling here, make sure that everything's all nice and good. And yeah, so that's how it goes. So that's the ITB setup here. So you got 20 valve individual throttle bodies, the silver top version, and then I got the Techno Toy Tuning ITB adapter. That's for 20 valve small top ITB, silver top ITBs for the small port intake 4AG motor. So just some stuff you want to kind of think about. So this is the basic setup here, and you can tell, like, this is the throttle body here, the linkage that connects to here. You have like a little linkage here that connects to the throttle body, and there you go, and it'll open up here simultaneously, and it works just like that there. So there you go, everything is all good there here. So yeah, next I'm gonna mount this to here. I'll show you. I'm gonna mount this guy onto here, and I'll show y'all how I do that. What I'm gonna do here is remove this fuel rail here, just to make it easier on y'all. I was also locking that too, just to make sure that everything fits up perfectly. So it's probably a 14 mil, I think here. Is it a 14 mil? No, it's a 12. Okay, so it's a 12 mil. Okay, 12. Oh, is it? Oh, it's 14, I think. Yeah, it's a 14. Okay. So what I'm gonna do here next is just remove that guy here, so y'all can see that here. Okay, I'm just gonna remove Okay, that's loose. That's loose. That's loose there too. Okay, so I'm just going to and this spacers and the bolts are from Flows Engineering too. So also shout out to Flows. I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that, but they're like a small company that builds or makes small RGE 4AGE parts too. And these spacers and nuts, you know, when you're rare to find. Like people ask so much money for those, and it's ridiculous. And I'm thankful that Flows is a company that can make off-shelf parts and not make it so freaking expensive to buy. So I'm all for that, you know. I hate when people try to sell things for a profit. I mean, I get, you know, you want to make money, but you know, you gotta understand, like, some people, you know, if you're asking a ridiculous amount of money for certain things, I'm just like, such a killjoy, you know. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here, these studs here are actually loose. So what I'm gonna do here is gonna put Loctite on here, and these are the studs for the intake manifold side. So I'm just gonna, I have my stud head removal kit, also installation deal here too. So make sure that it works here too here. Yep. Okay. Cool. Okay. So this one works here. So what I'm gonna do here is just apply Loctite on the thread here on this side here and onto the studs, and I kind of marked it off here too to know which stud I'm putting these on. So yeah, that's a good sign there. Yep. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is just kind of put decent amount of Loctite on, well, not decent amount, but just a dab of Loctite again here, and then thread this in here onto this hole here. There we go, so y'all can see there. All right, so I threaded that in. Next thing I'm gonna do here is kind of just cinch it up with this guy here, and I'm gonna just do a hand tight on this. I'm not gonna use the impact because the head is aluminum and you don't want to be stripping it out here too. Okay, so that's pretty good there here. Okay, so that's in there, that's on there good. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing here too. I'm gonna go ahead and put the studs, so those studs are pretty good there here too. So there we go. And this is again the refurbished eBay head that I bought online because it was just technically for the price I paid for the head, it was gonna be cheaper just to buy this and send my core back to them versus going to the machine shop and send my old small port head to get it, I guess the head decked and, you know, new valve seals, new valve stems, new everything. So yeah, it's just sometimes it's cheaper that way. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm using my stud remover / install socket here. It's an 8mm, and I just kind of do it nice and gentle here because I don't want to strip the head. All right, so that's that there here. Just one more time here. Okay, so that's good. Okay, this is probably also good here too, but there we go, yeah, okay. So I put Loctite on here. Next thing I'm gonna do is just make sure that these bolts are for the small port bolts. So these are my small port bolts for the intake manifold from the original motor basically. For big ports, you do want to get shorter bolts if you're going ITB with Technotoy tuning, because with the big port you have the TVIS system and then you have the manifold. So when you go ITBs, you actually move the TVIS system, which is an extra ½ inch of length. So you want to get bolts that are roughly about ½ inch or less of length for the big port motors. Small port motors, you don't have to worry about that because small ports never came with TVIS. So that's how you can tell if it's a newer model. If it's a newer model 4AG, they don't have TVIS. The older model 4AGs comes with TVIS. So this is a lot easier. Yeah, now you see why I put the throttle bodies first onto the manifold. Now it's a lot easier for me to just slide this whole deal in as a unit versus if I put the manifold in first, then the ITBs, it's a lot harder to juggle, especially when it's like vertical. So that's just tips from, you know, working on this motor the first time here. So yeah, now, oh wait, whoops, no, I forgot to put the intake adapter here, not intake adapter, sorry, the manifold adapter here. So let me get my gasket kit here. Let me show y'all here first. So you also want to make sure this is nice and clean. This was already pre-cleaned already. Same thing with that side there. But you know, I'm gonna get my manifold gasket here, intake, which comes with this here. So let me just pull that out here. So here we go. So this is ITM. This is not necessarily Toyota grade, but it works. Again, this is the one that has the Tevis gasket, which we don't use. We're using the gasket for the small port. So I don't know why it came with this. I don't think small port came with Tevis. So hopefully this gasket fits. We will soon find out here if they do. Let's just see here. If not, that would kind of suck. Oh yay. Okay, so it does fit perfectly. You can tell here that lines up nicely. It's not exactly, you know, the big port gaskets. Whew. Okay, thank goodness. Seat. Okay. So yeah, I'm just gonna lay this back onto the deal here. So once you have the gaskets put in, you're just gonna go ahead and put the manifold in here, and then that'll be it there here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put this in here like so. No need for RTV or anything like that. I did notice though the I guess the gaskets on the Toyota ones, like the OEM Toyota gaskets, the manifold gasket is actually metal too, just like here, just like the gasket for the ITBs. That the ITM off-branded, they're not. And my suspicion is, I'm guessing because it's cheaper to make, I would definitely, like I said, I would definitely have gotten the OEM gasket rebuild kit for the 4AG, but the thing was that they were out of stock at the time, and then I checked again recently and they were still out of stock. So I'm just gonna go with the, you know, that Flows recommends as a substitute, which is these guys, the ITM brand. So yeah, and I believe those are 12 mil bolts here. So let me just check here. I think they're 12 millimeter bolts if I'm not mistaken. Yes, they are. They're 12 millimeter bolts. Okay. So what I'm gonna do here is, this is the time I'll probably use my impact, honestly, to tighten. I'm just using the 3/8, 3/4 inch impact here, just to nicely coax them in here. Okay, I'm gonna use a longer extension too here, just because it'll be a lot easier for me. Kind of speed the process for y'all. But yeah, make sure, I can measure these for you, but these are the bolts you also want if you're using the Technotoy Tuning big port ITB adapter plate for the big ports. So let me show you hopefully the size of this. Let me just see here. I'm gonna get my size here. So it's like 25 millimeters here, or I guess in inches, this would be, I guess, 1¼ 1.25 inches there basically for you here. So yeah, 25 millimeter or 1¼ inches in length. So those are that's the size length bolts you want. So yeah, I'm just gonna hand tighten these here too here. Well, maybe I should loosen up this one here, because I think it'd be a lot easier to guide these guys in here while kind of finagling these guys here. Okay, so, okay. There we go. That's in. Okay. And I'll do the other one here too here. It's kind of, it's a bit harder now. There you go. And actually it's not harder, JK. It's a little bit tighter squeeze with the ITBs in here, but you know, it's kind of just finagle them, so you just hand thread them in first, like so here. Hand thread them in here. I'll put this on the bottom actually here. So you got 4 on the bottom here too here. And the vacuum line's kind of getting in the way too, honestly. So you kind of have to just kind of adjust it as it goes here. 2, 3. Okay. Okay, so that's that there here too. And what I'm gonna do here is just adjust the bottom part here first here. Okay. Alright. There you go. Okay. So this looks all good here. Hopefully. Yeah. Okay, so these are turning in nicely here. Okay. And I'm just going to do hand tight on all of these guys, just to kind of get them going first. And then do that there here. Okay. Actually, I can technically just use the impact. Just be very, very careful when you do this. So, last thing you want to do is strip a bolt. But this one's too tight. So, bottom part here, on the bottom part of the bolts here, it's a bit too tight, so let me just show y'all here too here. Y'all can see it better. But yeah, let me just do like this here so you can kind of see that angle there. There you go, so y'all can see that angle. But it's kind of tight here, so I am gonna have to use a wrench. And I think it's a 12mm wrench, so I'm gonna go ahead and set that up right now. Get my 12mm wrench. Toolbox. Let's see here, 13, 12. I think it's a 13. I think it's a 12. Is it? Yeah, it's a 12. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna have to just do this old school, kind of tedious, you know, type of deal here. So yeah, kind of annoying, but gotta do what you gotta do here. It's because these bolts are slightly. Should have done the Phillips bolts for these here too, but yeah, that's fine. So I'll do the harder parts first, and then move on to the easier bolts here. It's the way to do it here, honestly. I might use like a smaller 12, like the smaller size looking socket 12 here. Actually work. Let's see here. Okay. Let me just see this here. Hopefully, here you go. Okay, so it's on there here. Let's just see if that will work here. Not really. I might need to use like a longer socket. I don't have any longer sockets. Bummer. Okay. Yeah, I don't think these 12 would work here too here, honestly here. Just trying to figure out what would be the best plan of attack for these bolts here. Nope. Nope. Okay, so I really do have to like just straight up do that here where the here. Okay. Sadly, I have no choice but to turn this in by hand here.
and just take it from there really sadly. Yep. Okay, here, but that's how you basically do the bolts here, honestly. Okay, here. Okay, here. So, going to just tighten these guys up here, like so here. Takes a while, but just patience is the virtue here. You want to take your time doing this. You don't want to rush into it and then end up stripping the head. You want to be very, very careful. Okay, so that's nice and snug there here. Okay, let's snug this guy up here too next. Okay. And you want to kind of do this in order, you know, so. Yeah. I think honestly just hand tight, no Loctite on this part would be fine.
Hey everybody, so I know on the video I was doing it died, so this is I guess the part 2 of part 8. And the first part I was putting in the intake manifold to the motor. So I'm already done with it. I mounted the intake manifold with the ITBs to the head. And I tightened up the top part, but I was having a hard time tightening up the bottom bolts. The main reason is because these bolts right here, they have these flanges on here on the sides, and these flanges was actually hitting the manifold itself there. So it's pretty hard for me to kind of align it right, and I just didn't want to risk stripping it. So what I'm gonna do here is just replace these Allen head with these hex bolts to Allen head bolts, similar to these kind of bolts that I got, because these are for, in my opinion, tighter clearances. So I'm just gonna do that route. So I'm gonna get Allen type head bolts for the ITB manifold here. Just because, like I said, the flanges on this is a little bit too tight on here. It's just hitting this part here as I tighten it, and I really don't want to risk stripping anything there. And I'll probably will replace these bolts here too with the Allen type bolts, just to make everything kind of clean and good looking. So yeah, I replaced these bolts here too. Same thing with the ITBs there. But this is basically what you need mechanically wise to run ITBs. You need the ITB adapter, the ITB itself, and then you have to run trumpets. I don't have trumpets, but or spare trumpets per se, but you want to run trumpets, and the length on it just kind of depends on your clearance that you have on the engine bay. And I just know though, like longer the trumpets, in my opinion, the better sounding it is. So if you can fit really long trumpets, so the longest trumpet you can fit in the motor or in the engine bay, I definitely would do that. So that's how you install ITBs on a 4AGE motor, and kind of generally in any motor. And another tip is that I also replaced the Phillips screws on the back of this throttle position sensor, just because when I was at Circuit Americas, I was hitting the curbing so much that it actually rattled out, and one of the screws actually came off. So learning from that, I actually replaced my second motor with also these types of bolts too, and put Loctite on them also, just to prevent this from backing out and getting loose. And I used, Allen head again here for it, and then that's pretty much it. The rest of the things that you want to do when you're running ITBs is have a vacuum. So this is the vacuum that goes to the master cylinder on the 4AG. And then you got these small little ports here for the vacuum that goes to a vacuum block. So you have a block that has these other nipples too, where you connect this one to the vacuum block basically, which I don't have a picture of, but that's what you do. And then with this setup, I'm going to cap off the vacuum lines here on the 20 valves. just because your vacuum is going to be from the actual adapter, not from here. So just FYI. And then with the vacuum block goes to the map sensor. And with my map sensor, it's actually built in the ECU. And my ECU is a Link G4 Monsoon ECU. But you can use any ECU, preferably standalone is the best way to go, but you can technically use an ECU from the factory if they can do ITBs that have, like, you know, a map sensor. So some cars have built-in ITBs, like the later 4AG Corollas, which came with ITBs, their ECU can do ITBs. But it's ultimately what your budget is and how much ease of use you want to use. But that's my setup. Link E4G Monsoon ECU, vacuum block, vacuum lines, cap off the 20 valve vacuum, and then, you know, the mechanical parts, and then that's pretty much it really to run ITBs on a car. Of course you gotta tune in and all that, but at least all the parts you need, that's all you need there. So that's pretty much it there. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna, you know, keep on posting updates and more race videos on the YouTube channel. So thanks. All right, bye.